The word hung in the static between transmission and response. Hartmann released the button and waited. Around him, the bunker's fluorescent lights flickered, casting shadows across maps that no longer mattered. The war was over. Everyone knew it. Berlin had fallen. The Führer was dead. The Reich that was supposed to last 1,000 years had managed 12. But Hartmann's orders were clear. Hold this position. Deny the British access to the naval installations at Cuxhaven. Fight until relieved or until receiving orders to the contrary. He had received neither. Lieutenant Fogel appeared at his elbow, young face pale in the artificial light. Sir, the men are asking. The men will hold their positions. Yes, sir. But sir, they are saying Berlin has surrendered. That Donitz has. I have heard the same rumors, Lieutenant. When I receive official confirmation through proper channels, I will act accordingly. Until then, we follow our orders. Fogel's jaw tightened. He'd been with Hartmann since France, had followed him through 4 years of retreat from positions that couldn't be held, defending lines that no longer existed. Loyalty like that deserved honesty, at least. How many? Hartmann asked quietly. Sir? How many want to surrender? Fogel looked at his boots. Most of them. Nearly all. The wireless crackled again. This time, a different voice. Older. Authoritative. English with a clipped, aristocratic accent that carried even through the poor connection. German commander. This is Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery. You will identify yourself. Hartmann exchanged glances with Fogel. Montgomery himself. The victor of El Alamein. Commander of all British ground forces in northwestern Europe. Either this position mattered more than Hartmann had realized, or the British were very serious about ending this without further bloodshed. He keyed the transmit button. This is Major Klaus Hartmann, 347th Infantry Regiment, Wehrmacht. Major Hartmann. I am offering you one opportunity to surrender your forces with honor. You will receive full protections under the Geneva Convention. Your men will be treated fairly. You have my personal guarantee. I have my orders, Field Marshal. A pause. Static. Then, Major, the war is over. Your government has ceased to exist. Your chain of command has disintegrated. There is no one coming to relieve you. No orders that will change your situation. There is only you, 400 men, and a decision. Hartmann looked around the bunker. Fogel watched him. The radio operator, barely 18, listened with wide eyes. At the far end, Sergeant Kruger leaned against the wall, arms crossed, face unreadable. Kruger had been in Poland. Had seen it all. If anyone understood the futility, it was him. I need time to consider, Field Marshal. You have 30 minutes. After that, I will give the order to reduce your position. The transmission ended. Hartmann set down the handset and walked to the map table. Fogel followed. Sir, he's right. The Reichstag has fallen. Donitz is negotiating surrender terms. We heard it on the BBC. The BBC is enemy propaganda. Sir? I know, Lieutenant. I know. Hartmann traced a finger along the map, following defensive positions that were supposed to protect installations that no longer mattered for a government that no longer existed. But what happens if we surrender? You've heard the stories. What the Soviets are doing. What they are saying we did in the East. We're not in the East, sir. These are British. Americans. They are different. Are they? Hartmann pulled a cigarette from his pocket, lit it. Smoking underground was against regulations, but regulations seemed less important now. We're SS, Lieutenant. All of us. Assigned to Waffen SS Command 6 months ago when they needed bodies to fill holes. Do you think the British will care that we're regular Wehrmacht? That we never set foot in Poland or Russia? That we spent the last year retreating through France and Holland? We can explain. Explain to whom? Explain how? Hartmann drew smoke deep into his lungs. They'll see the insignia. They'll see our unit designation. And they'll make assumptions. You know they will. Footsteps on the concrete stairs. Kruger emerged from the shadows, his weathered face impassive. The men are talking, Major. They want to go home. There may not be homes to go back to, Sergeant. Then they want to try. They want the chance. Kruger stepped closer, lowering his voice. I've been where you are, sir. Poland, September 39. Had a colonel who wouldn't surrender even when the situation was hopeless. Kept us fighting 3 days past when we should have quit. You know what happened. Hartmann waited. Half of us died. Half. For nothing. For a position that didn't matter, defending a piece of Poland that we'd lose anyway. The other half of us surrendered when the ammunition ran out. Including the colonel. All those boys died for 3 days. 3 days of a man's pride. This isn't pride, Sergeant. Then what is it? Hartmann didn't answer. He couldn't, because he wasn't sure. Fear, perhaps. Fear of what came next. Fear of facing judgment for years of following orders that seemed reasonable at the time but looked monstrous in hindsight. Fear that surrender meant the end of everything he'd built his identity upon: duty, discipline, service. The wireless crackled. Major Hartmann. 20 minutes remain. Hartmann crossed to a small ventilation shaft, peered through the grating. Rain fell steadily. Through the downpour, he could make out the shapes of tanks, their guns trained on his position. Churchill tanks. Shermans. More firepower than his concrete bunker could withstand for long. How much ammunition do we have? He asked. Fogel consulted his notes. Approximately 60% of full load. Small arms, machine guns. 4 Panzerfausts. No artillery support available. And if we fight? We might hold for a day. Maybe 2 if we're lucky and they don't use air support. Fogel paused. Then they'll break through, and anyone still alive will surrender anyway. Or die trying. Hartmann returned to the map table. His cigarette had burned down to his fingers. He crushed it out against the concrete edge. 12 years. 12 years of service. France. The Low Countries. Russia for one terrible winter. Back to France as the Americans came. Retreat through Holland. And now here, in a bunker on Lüneburg Heath, listening to rain and waiting for a decision that should have been simple. What would you do, Sergeant? He asked Kruger. The old soldier considered. In Poland, I wanted to fight. I was young, believed the propaganda. Thought we were invincible. He shook his head. I know better now. War is over, sir. Has been for weeks. We just haven't admitted it yet. Lieutenant? Fogel straightened. I'll follow your orders, sir. Whatever you decide. But if you're asking my opinion, I have a wife in Hamburg. A daughter I haven't seen in 2 years. I'd like the chance to see them again. And if the British execute us as war criminals, then at least we died trying to get home instead of dying in a hole defending nothing. The wireless again. Major Hartmann. 15 minutes. Hartmann walked the length of the bunker. 400 men. 400 lives dependent on his choice. Some were teenagers who'd been conscripted 6 months ago. Others were veterans who'd survived years of combat. All of them waiting. All of them wanting to live. He thought of his own family. His parents in Bremen, if Bremen still stood. His brother, missing in action in Russia since 1943. His sister, last he heard, in a refugee column somewhere east of Berlin. What would they want him to do? At the wireless station, the young operator looked up at him with hopeful eyes. Sir? Should I prepare a response? Hartmann made his decision. Connect me to Montgomery. The operator's hands flew across the controls. Static, then the clear tone of an open channel. Field Marshal Montgomery, this is Major Hartmann. I'm listening, Major. I need guarantees. Written guarantees. My men are regular Wehrmacht. We were administratively attached to SS Command for organizational purposes only. We have committed no war crimes. We have followed the conventions of war throughout our service. I need your personal guarantee that these men will be treated as prisoners of war, not as criminals. That they will receive fair treatment. That they will eventually be allowed to return to their families. A pause. Hartmann could hear rain in the background on Montgomery's end. The field marshal was close, then. Probably in a command vehicle just outside the perimeter. You have my word, Major. As an officer and a gentleman. Your men will be treated according to the Geneva Convention. I will personally ensure that anyone under your command receives fair treatment. You will be processed as prisoners of war, nothing more. Once the formal surrender is completed, you will be repatriated according to standard procedure. And if you're lying, then I would be breaking my word, which I have never done in 35 years of military service. Montgomery's voice softened slightly. Major, I understand your position. I have been in similar circumstances myself. I know what it means to be responsible for men's lives. To make decisions that will haunt you regardless of which way you choose. But the war is over. There is no dishonor in accepting reality. Hartmann looked at Fogel, then at Kruger, then at the young radio operator. He thought of 400 men in the rooms and tunnels beyond. 400 chances at life. 400 families that might see their sons, husbands, fathers again. I need 1 hour to prepare my men. You have 1 hour, Major. Hartmann set down the handset. The bunker seemed quieter now, the rain less threatening. He took a deep breath, then turned to Fogel. Lieutenant, assemble the company commanders. I want an orderly surrender. Weapons stacked, ammunition secured, all documents prepared for transfer. We do this properly. Yes, sir. Fogel's relief was visible. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. We don't know what comes next. The next hour passed in careful preparation. Hartmann walked through the bunker complex, speaking with his men. Some were grateful, faces showing naked relief. Others were angry, feeling betrayed. A few sergeants argued that they should fight, that surrender was cowardice. Hartmann listened to all of them, but his decision was made. At 4:47 p.m., he climbed the stairs from the bunker. The rain had stopped. Grey clouds hung low over the heath, but patches of lighter sky showed to the west. The British tanks still surrounded his position, but their guns had elevated slightly, no longer aimed directly at the bunker entrance. A staff car approached, flying a white flag. It stopped 20 meters away, and a tall figure emerged. Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery wore his characteristic beret and battle dress, no ostentation despite his rank. He walked forward alone, stopping at the neutral ground between the British line and the German position. Hartmann met him there. They stood facing each other, two soldiers at the end of a war. Montgomery spoke first. Major Hartmann. Your men will be assembled on the heath. Transport trucks are being brought forward. You'll be taken to a processing facility where you'll be documented, interviewed, and then transferred to a prisoner camp. The wounded will receive medical care first. Food and water will be provided. Questions? When will we be allowed to contact our families? As soon as administratively possible. Red Cross will facilitate contact for those whose families can be located. Montgomery's expression softened slightly. I know this is difficult, Major. But you made the right choice. You saved lives today. Yours and your men's. That matters. Does it? We still lost the war. Wars end, Major. Men go on living. You've given your men that chance. Over the next 2 hours, Hartmann watched his command disintegrate into columns of prisoners. The British were efficient, professional. True to Montgomery's word, they were treated correctly. The wounded were loaded into ambulances. The rest formed ranks, were counted, searched, and loaded into trucks. No one was beaten. No one was executed. Kruger approached as his section was being processed. Well, sir. We're alive. For now. It's a start. The sergeant extended his hand. It's been an honor serving with you, Major. They shook hands. Hartmann felt something catch in his throat. Stay alive, Sergeant. Get home. You too, sir. Fogel was among the last to be processed. He stood at attention before Hartmann one final time. Permission to speak freely, sir? Granted. You did the right thing. Whatever happens next, you did right by us today. I hope you still think so in 6 months. I will. Fogel saluted. Hartmann returned it. Then he was alone with a British captain who spoke reasonable German. Major Hartmann? This way, please. They walked to a separate vehicle, a courtesy, Hartmann realized, allowing him to maintain some dignity rather than being loaded into a truck with enlisted men. The courtesy of one officer to another, enemy or not. As the vehicle pulled away, Hartmann looked back at the bunker. The position he'd held. The ground he'd been prepared to die for. It looked smaller now. Less significant. Just concrete and earth on an anonymous heath. Montgomery stood near his command car, watching the processing. As Hartmann's vehicle passed, their eyes met briefly. The field marshal nodded once, acknowledgement, perhaps, or respect for a difficult decision. The vehicle turned onto the main road, heading south toward the processing facility. Through the window, Hartmann could see other columns of German prisoners, other surrenders happening across the heath. The war was ending in pieces, one position at a time, one commander's decision at a time. He thought about what came next. Interrogation. Investigation. Months or years in a prisoner camp. The slow process of denazification, of rebuilding a country from ruins. The questions that would follow him forever about what he knew, what he did, what he should have done differently. But he was alive. His men were alive. 407 souls who would have a chance at whatever came next. The rain started again as they drove, washing across the windscreen in sheets. Hartmann closed his eyes and listened to it drum against the roof of the vehicle, a sound that was almost peaceful now that it no longer beat against bunker concrete like enemy artillery. In his pocket, he still carried the last letter from his sister, 6 months old, describing her flight from the east. He would write back to her, if she was still alive. He would tell her he'd survived. That he'd made a choice. That he'd tried to be something more than just another soldier following orders into oblivion. The vehicle carried him away from Lüneburg Heath, away from the war, toward an uncertain future that was at least a future. Behind him, British soldiers were already dismantling the defensive positions, preparing the ground for whatever came next. In a week, the bunker would be empty. In a month, it might be forgotten. In a year, just another piece of buried concrete on a heath that would grow green again with grass and heather. But 407 men would remember. Would carry the memory of a day when surrender meant survival, when one officer's decision to trust an enemy's word gave them a chance at life beyond war. Hartmann opened his eyes and watched the German countryside roll past. Scarred. Ruined. But still there. Still Germany, whatever that would mean in the years to come. The rain continued to fall, washing away the marks of tanks and boots, beginning the slow work of healing that would take generations.